Welcome to the Fly Culture Podcast, bringing you interviews, reviews, and fishing tips. Here's your host, Pete Tigus.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Fly Culture Podcast. I've had a hubcap-sized cinnamon roll this morning to get the day underway, 2 large coffees. I'm in the car at the moment, I'm looking at the sign now, and if you're a music fan, you'll know Roskilde, which is a venue in Denmark, and that's where I am today. You probably on the podcast heard me talk about my good friend Ray, aka The Dude, aka Doodlahara, and COVID's got in the way of things a little bit, and we've not been able to meet up and do some fishing. Like you can probably guess, I'm in Denmark. The species we're after today are going to be sea trout. We're underway. Buddy, it's great to catch up with you. It's great to be back in Denmark, and it's great to be able to chasing some sea trout. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Pete, and thanks very much for having me on the podcast.
The other thing we're going to do today is I've got a couple of days fishing. Ray, as you probably guessed now, is American, so we're having some Thanksgiving turkey as well, so it's Thanksgiving weekend, so we're going to do that. But where are we heading today, buddy?
We're heading towards fjord, which is a fjord about 50 kilometers directly west of Copenhagen.
And the plan today is I've been lucky enough to fish this fjord a number of times over the years, and I really, really like it. I think it's one of the first I think it is the place I call my first Danish sea trout. And fjord, when you think of fjord, size of waters are really difficult one to sort of get across on this, but to give you a clue, there's a sizable island there, there's a ferry that can take you across, and it's quite big. I've talked about this, I think, on previous podcasts where I was trying to figure out what was going on and looked at it like a brown trout fishery really, or a wild brown trout fishery, and one that I fish in Cornwall called Colliford. And Colliford is sizable by contrast to many places that you may cast a line for trout, but compared to Isefjord, it's minute. But I broke the fjord down into sort of smaller sections, Colliford size sections, and fished it and thought, well, these are brown trout, let's change things up a little bit, and managed to catch some fish. And I put a dropper on, and I remember catching I had 2 double hookups, I think, which was really, really cool. But I think Ray and I, again, if you're a regular listener, have done so much fishing together. We fished around the world. And I think when he moved here, I was dreadfully sad when he moved here. But I think he was always a little bit worried that I wouldn't feel the same because being a river fisherman more than anything else, that I would probably feel the same about it. But I absolutely love it, and it is fantastic fun. You were a bit nervous I wasn't going to like it, weren't you?
I was, Pete. As you say, we've had so many good fishing memories together over the many years, starting in the UK. And we definitely, I think, enjoy river fishing. That's still, despite, my living in Denmark, that's still my first love. But chasing silver is a little bit different, I think, in that in the river, you know where the fish are holding more or less. Whereas here, on your first visit, there's just a vast expanse of water. And it took me a while to figure out where the fish tend to be. They're not always there. Finding Danish sea trout is very challenging. But there are some things I think that you can pay attention to that increase the probability of finding a fish. So whether it's on the open sea or whether it's in a fjord, you're looking for things like weed beds. Sea trout, when they go out to sea, survive primarily on a diet of small fish and shrimp. So anywhere you find those things, you'll find the sea trout. So weed beds are one place where they like to hang out. Rocks, reefs, structure, any one of those places can hold sea trout. Unlike in a river where they probably do hold trout, I say that they can hold trout, because the challenge today and any day when you're sea trout fishing is to continue to move, to try different places, because the fishiest looking spot may not hold fish, and you just have to accept that and very quickly move on. Now today, our wives have given us, I guess about half a day. We need to be home relatively early to enjoy our Thanksgiving dinner tonight. So we'll only have the opportunity to cover 2-3 spots if we're lucky. So yeah, that's the plan.
Sounds really cool. And I'm looking, last time I was out here, it was absolutely freezing. And it was so cold. It didn't put me off in any way, shape or form. But in the car, I see it's 7 degrees, which, does that sort of impact things from a temperature perspective? Will that make any impact on things today?
Only for the angler. The fish tend to... it's spring and fall are the best times of the year to fish for sea trout here in Denmark. In summer, the water's too warm. In winter, the water's too cold. They have difficulty processing the salinity. So this time of year is good from a water temperature standpoint. We're just going to have to deal with the cold or the wind or the rain or whatever else Mother Nature throws at us. Today, as you say, we're in the high single digits, so that'll make for a more comfortable angling experience for you and me, but the fish couldn't care less.
Nice, like that a lot. And from a fishing perspective, I think the mindset as well, and Ray talks about these massive expanses of water and some of the places, I remember one of the first times I came out, certainly in spring, and we were fishing in the sea, and you're looking out into the sea thinking, geez, where are these fish going to be? And I think Ray hit something very firmly on the head by saying we move about, and that's one of the key things. And you can even take that onto your reservoir fishing. I'm sure if you're a reservoir angler, you do this anyway, is that, and I know on the occasions that I fish them that I can't stand still. I'm always looking to move, and when you've got these huge expanses of water, you've just got to do that. But one of the things I was also thinking about was the culture, and again, I've talked many times about here as a fishing culture, and whenever we're out, we always see a good number of anglers, and there are some spin anglers there are fly anglers. The age group to me strikes me as being younger. It's quite a vibrant and well-populated community, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, as with any sort of angling, you find anglers of all ages, but I think one of the reasons you tend to find younger anglers is because it's actually quite physically demanding. You would think that, standing around, fishing after trout isn't physically demanding, but we're going to be going over slippery rocks. We're going to be climbing in places where it does actually require a bit of, not that neither you or I, Pete, are physical specimens, but it does require a minimum amount of strength and balance. And this is, if we're lucky, it's an 8 or 10 hour fishing day, which, it's demanding. So yeah, that's why I think you do tend to find younger anglers. Plus, I think, I don't know, I think there's a certain coolness to it, which appeals to younger anglers. So that would be my theory.
The really cool thing about having a friend that you fish with out in Denmark is that all my kit's here. So I'm really lucky that Ray lends me a pair of waders. I've got wading boots, I've got rod, sunglasses, jacket, absolutely everything I need. So when I'm travelling out, that makes it easy, so I don't need to take a lot of luggage. We've just parked up, we've got into our waders. We're walking down to the fjord now, and like I say, I can't even see the other side, it's so far. But I remember fishing here before, and if I remember rightly, there's a spit almost. So it looks like a sort of lake, I would say, of about 100 acres, something like that. So I can see a small island, but there's a spit that we can cover, and I remember us both catching some fish from there. Ray says it can be a popular spot with anglers, so when we drove past there was nobody about, so we're going to have a wander down. It's I would say a 5-minute walk down to where we're going to be fishing. We're going to rig up and go from there, but it's great to be fishing with you again, buddy. It feels like it's been a while.
Too long, Pete. Always too long. So yeah, you're right. It's a popular spot. A, because it's close to the road, and B, because it's a place where fish tend to congregate. We're actually at the end of a small bay, and as you say, there's a spit sticking out in the water. And when we get down there, we'll see that there's some weed growth down there. So it's a natural spot for sea trout, thereby making it a natural spot for anglers. But even though it's a Thanksgiving weekend Saturday, there's no one down here, to my surprise. So hopefully the fishing gods will be smiling upon us today.
We'll give it a good go. The other thing we've got are line trays as well. And I've got my sort of old 9.5 foot 7 weight with an intermediate line. Ray tends to fish with a shooting head as well. It's usually a 9 foot 6 weight. Is that what you've got? Exactly. Yeah, he's got a 9 foot 6 weight. I kind of just, it's because it was a spare rod I could bring out. And so it lives in Denmark now. But we're going to have a wander down, see how we get on. It doesn't feel that cool. I put a beanie on, I put a baseball cap on first, but it felt a little bit cool for that. So the temperature dropped a tiny bit. I noticed it dropped half a degree since when I first recorded this bit, but we're going to go down and have a look. With the fish, we fish really, really simply, and it seems to work just fine for Ray. It's a fly pattern called a Kobberbassen. Is that the correct? Yeah. So I got that right. If you're a Trekkie, we call it a Kobayashi Maru. So if you're a Trekkie, you'll know. But Ray, describe the fly for us.
Well, that shouldn't take very long, Pete. It's basically dubbing on a hook. The dubbing is hairline, ice dub, copper. The hook is a Kamasan B175. Depending on the size of the hook and the amount of dubbing that I use, it can suggest small fish, it can suggest small shrimp. That's just my opinion. What I do know is that they're very, very easy to tie and very effective fly.
And I'm very lucky, Ray's tied up a bunch of them, so I've got loads in my pocket. I'm going to fish a couple of flies with a dropper there and see how we get on. The section we're fishing, Ray very generously has given me the point of the spit to throw out to. It's kind of strange that the water's glassy calm at the moment. The angler in me would hope there's a little bit more ripple on the water just to give us a little bit more of a chance. The water's crystal clear. I'm sort of standing thigh deep, just a little bit deeper than that, and I can feel the temperature of the water's pretty cool at the moment. Like I say, I would like a little bit more ripple, and you look out and I can see a couple of swans. There's a seagull diving, picking some bait fish up, I would guess. He's had a couple of goes at stuff, and then I'm sort of standing there thinking those things about a little bit more ripple, I'm fishing for trout, and then a jellyfish floats by, and that sort of puts it jolts you back into remembering what you're fishing for and where you actually are. Yet we're fishing for trout as well. So yeah, the few casts in, I'm really enjoying it. Throwing a little bit longer line than I normally do, which is fun. Using the stripping basket. Ray's given me a slightly different one this year. There's one he'd made for me that worked really well, but this is a bought one that's working fantastically, so my line's not tangling up. I'm don't ever follow what I'm doing, but I've just used the leader that I had on previously, but that seems to be working fine. It's not particularly long. Like I say, I've got an intermediate line on, and I'm sort of throwing it out and working the flies back whilst covering water. So I sort of cast, fish the area, and then step down, and we'll continue doing that. Ray's about 70, 80 feet away, so I'm watching him throw the line out. He's a little bit nearer the bank there, but we'll keep working it along and see how we get on. So I think Ray's calling the play. We fished, he's gone at turbo speed round the bay, and I've sort of worked my way round to where he got in. I got what I asked for, and I got a little gentle ripple on the water, which was good. I've been casting about, I would say about 60 foot, possibly a little bit further, but it's a nice manageable amount of line that I'm getting it out there. No issues at all. It's a pick it up, one false cast and out it goes, which has been really pleasing. I'm picking up a little bit of seaweed, so it means to me at least that I'm probably over the right areas with beds there of seaweed, which fish are interested in as well. So it's good from that point of view. And I think it echoes what Ray said. You just got to keep moving. There's such immense expanses of water that you just can't stand in one place and fish, because you might get lucky, but you've just got to keep covering the water. And as long as your flies are out there and you're moving and you're active, then you're in with a shout. But it is just a case of really just keep working, seeing if you can cover that water and see if anyone's home. So we just made a short journey in the car, probably 5 minutes away or so. We're at a spot I know a little bit. I'm watching to the right. I can hear the gentle thud of the ferry as it goes across. And we're walking along the fjord at the moment. Is to my right, and then we're going to walk in. There's a great big bay that I fished a couple of times. It's a pretty cool spot, isn't it?
It is a good spot. It's where Pete had his double-double, which I've actually never seen before, on I don't know, was that 3-4 years ago on a snowy, the weather was miserable that day, but the fishing was good. So if you can get another double-double today for the podcast, Pete, I think your listeners would be most appreciative.
I'd be pretty appreciative too as well. And it's interesting, we talked about the fly patterns and the cobber bass and how good that's been. But I remember we came here one time, we'd been fishing, I think we'd taken the ferry across, and I came back and there was some people fishing there, and I thought, well, let's try something a little different. And I put on, it was a fully mill pattern, it was a snake pattern, and that's not a sea trout snake pattern, that's the stillwater pattern that is zonker fur and a hook on the back and wriggles through the water. And it was lovely. I sort of rocked up, threw it out, and had a whack from a fish sort of straight away. So, you know, sometimes, as I often say on here, we can be bogged down by the minutiae, you know, all the flies we've got, these cobber bass, but sometimes it's good to step out the box. But you don't need to have a lot of stuff in the box. It's, as I said, a lot of this is locating the fish, and I'm lucky that Ray's out. How often are you fishing for sea trout?
More often, you know, in the spring and in the fall, Pete. But I would say on average, let's say in the spring, once, twice a week. Same thing for the fall. During the summer, not that much at all, because the best fishing is at night, late in the evening. Winter, it's just too cold. It's unpleasant when it gets, you know, below freezing for me and for the fish. So once or twice a week during the peak season.
Nice. And we're looking here, I was saying when you were fishing a little bit further away, I was hoping there'd be a little bit more ripple on the water. I'm sure we've caught fish when there hasn't been ripple on the water, but just as a angler, I'm thinking about those things. But what else are you sort of kind of thinking about here? Is it just purely we have just got to keep covering water to find the fish?
Yeah, I mean, you increase your chances for a catch the more water you cover. We've been here before and it's fished really well, but I've been here, a lot of times when I've blanked. So as you said, just a moment ago, it's really about finding the fish. Even if you're in a place where, the conditions appear ideal, you can very well come away with nothing.
So fishing a bay I know quite well. As Ray said, I was lucky enough to have a couple of double hookups here, and I've caught fish here on previous visits, and this feels really good to me. The bay, I'm looking across it now, it's big, it must be 250, 300 acres, something like that. It's absolutely huge. But I like it because the wind is sort of blowing down into this bay. It's coming to me just a little bit, but it's blowing back in. And if I was fishing for any sort of trout right now, I'd be thinking food's being pushed this way. So that may be where I'm looking. Again, we're searching the water. Ray's just a little bit to my left and has been fishing some slightly deeper water, but we'll just keep working it. I've been adding a little bit more distance. It's been interesting. I've been playing, and it's been fun casting a lot further than I normally do. So I'm probably throwing 70 feet of line at the moment. But I've been playing with the casting aspect of it and enjoying that and seeing if I can shoot line relatively quickly. It's a great line I've got. I think it's a Rio Intermediate outbound, something like that, and it loads the rod really, really well. But I've noticed actually that I've not been, I tend to, when I'm going for distance, on the last back cast, I release a hell of a lot of line into it and then fire forward again, whereas I've not been doing that. And on the last cast, I've been keeping the line tight, so I've been feeding into the forward cast, and then on the last back one, keeping the line nice and tight and then firing it out. And it seems to be working really well for me. It's not anything scientific into it. It's just I noticed that I don't tend to throw big long line a lot of the time, but it's been fun to do that and try that technique, and it seems to have really kept that line tight and turning over really, really nicely. But this feels right to me. There's obviously a bit more confidence because I've caught fish here previously, but again, I guess the main thing is the expanse of water. I'm looking out to my right and there's an island there. There's just so much water, and you've just got to keep covering it and keeping the faith. We fished the bay, and it looked, as I said, absolutely spot on. The wind was blowing in to the bay there. Everything looked right to pick up a fish, but sadly we didn't find anyone there. So we've hopped on the ferry to go across, and we're going to a spot that Ray had a really nice fish. But it's lovely thinking about the trips that we've done a lot of fishing together, and we fish from the UK, around the UK, Ireland, we've been to New Zealand, Montana, Colorado. The trips we've done, do you have one that sticks out in your mind, one of the places that we've been to?
Oh gosh, Pete, not really. I mean, we've created such good fishing memories together that they all sort of run together. I suppose New Zealand was an experience because, of course, we traveled a long way to get there, and each fish that we caught was sight fishing. Very fit, strong fish, as anyone that's been to New Zealand can tell you. Ireland's been great because we've caught an awful lot of fish there, and the Irish people, as they like to say, get along with everyone except themselves. I think Colorado was a blast because that morning, the first morning that we were there in Basalt, I think it's pronounced, really a fishing town. We came out into the center of town, and there were drift boats and guides and stocking up on their supplies for the day. Is there one that really stands out? No. There's just a bunch of really happy fishing memories that blend together, and today's all part of that mix.
And the cool thing is that we've had always this rule, and it's probably going to change in the environment we live in, that we don't go in lodges, we don't do whatever, we have a rule that you don't spend more than $100 a night on accommodation, cheaper if you can get it. I'm kind of thinking of that place we stayed on the South Platte, where I've never seen a mouse infestation like it. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do remember it very well. Perhaps we should have paid a bit more that time, but it was a memorable fishing trip. I think my memory from that trip. It's funny, you don't really remember fish. I know that we caught a lot of fish on that trip, but for some reason we were taking a back road that paralleled the South Platte, and in our rent-a-car, and I sort of lost control of the car and ended up stuffing the car into a bank, creating a huge dent in the right front quarter, which, when I saw it, I thought, oh God, that's going to be expensive. But you saw it differently, got in there, popped the hood, pushed the dent out, and the rent-a-car agency was none the wiser for that accident. So thanks for that, Pete. That was a really strong piece of work you did there.
Yeah, we were trying to find Chesman Dam, I think, to have a look. We were fishing up there the next day. I think it was 4th of July, and the river was packed next day. But you said, don't worry about it, because everyone would be going back to have a barbecue. And we had the dream section to ourselves in the afternoon, didn't we? And I remember check nymphing was pretty new then, and I managed to pick up fish, heavily pressured fish, that way by dead drifting and check nymphing, high sticking, nymphs through the water, which was amazing fun. I remember us fishing the Bitterroot in Montana, the town water. That's probably about the closest I've got to a bear that was the other side of the river and came straight across at us. Do you remember that?
I do. And, the fishing, I think a lot of the fishing that that we do is pretty challenging fishing. We're not shy about, fishing town waters. It gets pounded by the locals. We've, fished on the Madison where, drift boats have just go over the water repeatedly. But that doesn't really seem to put us off, because I think if you sort of show the fish something that they haven't seen before or don't see very often, they're willing to take it. So I think one of the things that I enjoy about fishing with you is that we're just willing to try anything to get into a fish.
And your words were, when that bear came across towards us, I remember them as if it were yesterday: whatever you do, don't run.
Yeah, that's right. For the Fly Culture podcast listeners, words of wisdom from anyone who's ever encountered a bear: do not run.
And he made the wading look pretty easy, I have to say. But yeah, so many cool places. And Denmark's been a part of that for me now, that I've been coming out here probably 10 years, once or twice a year, and really, really enjoy this. Like Ray was saying, do anything and try anything to try and find a fish or two. And that's what you got to do with this as well. And it's been fun to try and figure out, right, where are these guys, and you've just got to, like I was saying before, you just got to keep the faith, keep working the water. It's just working it, follow hunches, watercraft if you think about it, but you've just got to keep working that water, and that's what I love about it. And as I said, it's the vast expanse of water that you're thinking, how the hell am I going to find a fish? And then it can suddenly happen. Not always, but then it can happen. And you find a fish, and then you just marvel at the fact that these fish are hanging around here and you've managed to make a cast out and found one. One of the things I've been thinking about when we've been fishing, actually, is the fly patterns we've been using, the clarity of the water and the eyesight of the fish, that they must be able to see these things from quite some distance off. And, if someone's passing through, there might be a chance. But we're going to give this place a go, and then it's back for some serious turkey eating. So we're starting the drive back now, and we fished the area on the island that looked really good. I was picking up a lot of seaweed, And so I sort of lengthened my leader a little bit, just so that I didn't and could get a nice drift, and was fishing sort of shallower water as well. And we did actually spook a couple of fish that were in probably 3 or 4 inches of water, and would shoot off as we sort of approached, which made us change things up a little bit, and we threw in towards the tighter banks. And I was asking Ray about it. He'd said he'd seen a fish, and I saw a couple that way, and he said they're probably not feeding there, they're just sort of resting up. So we continued sort of the process of out covering as much of the bank as we possibly could and going from there, but no joys as such. It felt good. Again, there was a nice ripple on the water. I don't know why I'm obsessing by that, but the wind was coming into our bank as well, so in my mind it was bringing food in to where we were, so my hope was that fish would come in with it. But to put in perspective as well, and I talked about the ferry across to the island that we fished in the fjord, and putting that in perspective, I said to Ray, how many people sort of live there full time? And he sort of said 1,000. So that sort of gives you a clue of the size of water that we're actually fishing right now, and he's pretty big. But we've walked away. It's getting cooler now. The evening's sort of coming in a little bit, so we're going to eat, drink, and be merry. And then it's an early start tomorrow. And we're fishing somewhere else tomorrow. So I'm very much looking forward to that. It's been a great day. It's been great to be able to do that. And like I was saying, throwing a longer line has been really, really good fun. I've enjoyed that aspect of it. I feel like we've done our part of the deal, and we just didn't find the fish that were in the vicinity that we're looking to feed. So that's it for now. So back for a bit of turkey, and then hit the water again tomorrow. So it's an early start this morning. I got up at 5:30 and we were underway at 6. And we've travelled for about an hour and a half or so. Coffee in hand at the moment. Big Danish just been eaten. Feeling good. Good sugar rush going on right now. Ray, what's the plan today?
We're going to fish in Kalundborg is to Copenhagen, what Bristol is to London. So we're on Sjælland's west coast, and we're going to fish. Right now we're going to start off on one of the 2 peninsulas out here called Asnæs, and time permitting we'll make our way to the other peninsula, which is called Rosnes, and in between these 2 peninsulas is the Kalundborg fjord.
People who know a little bit about Danish sea trout would know, probably regarded as one of the meccas is a place called Fyn, which is an island. I've been lucky enough to fish there a couple of times and really, really enjoyed it. And yesterday it was dawning on me that we talked in the car about the needle in the haystack that we're actually looking for. And I said to Ray, is Fyn different because it's a smaller area, it's a smaller island, so you can travel around the island and find somewhere that's fishable in any weather conditions, and so does that mean that fish hug the edge of the island, and so it's easier to locate more fish? What's your theory on that, comparable to what we're doing right now?
Sure. There's a lot of reasons why you want to fish Fyn for sea trout. You mentioned the first one. As a fly angler, you can almost always find some measure of protection from the wind. Fyn itself is blessed with many rivers. Fyn is situated between Jutland, which is the part of Denmark that shares a land border with Germany, and Sjælland, which is where we are now. There's also an abundance of rivers in Jutland, and the sea trout migrate from Jutland by Fyn out to the Baltic Sea. So Fyn benefits not only from sea trout migration from Jutland, but also as a result of its abundance of rivers and angling clubs and so forth that improve the habitat there, have their own native supply, if you will, of sea trout. So it's a great place to fish for sea trout for a variety of different reasons.
Not fished this spot before, but the best comment I can come up with is fishy as fuck. We've sort of walked through a little bit of a forest to come out at a point where Ray described it as a reef, and I couldn't describe it better. It's a lot more rocky here, a lot of seaweed. To me, it looks the perfect hunting ground for sea trout to go find stuff. Again, a vast expanse of water as far as I can see. It almost looks sea-like here. The fjord, I'm told by Ray, is very, very deep, and in fact I can see 3 oil tankers a little bit further out in the distance. So that sort of paints hopefully a little bit of a picture. The wind is blowing into where that we're actually fishing here, the promontory or the point here, which is kind of nice. It gusted a little bit last couple of seconds. I've got the intermediate line on, and because there's so much seaweed on the last 10-15 feet or so that I'm picking up some seaweed, but I don't mind. I think my flies are fishing free of any snags or bits and pieces like that before they pick up the stuff. So unless somebody's followed me in, lessons learnt from yesterday, fish that were close in. So we started very, very short, just very, very short casts out, just in case anyone was in the vicinity. But it looks nice. It's a really nice bit of water. Ray spotted another angler as well, which is really cool to see. So I'm going to see what he's up to. If he's a spin angler or a fly angler, it'd be cool to see that. So we're just going to have a little bit move up to cover the water. One of the things we've been doing as well is casting then 10 steps to make sure you cover as much as you and as quickly as you possibly can. So I've been doing that, and that seems to have been pretty effective. Not with the fish so far, but it feels as though we're in the right spot right now. So we walked up a little bit further, and I'd mentioned that we'd seen an angler, and it's super cool that he's a fly angler. And we've caught up with Morton, who has been fishing. I'm guessing, did you start early this morning?
Yeah, I started before the light came.
Yes, he was here early. I thought we were here super early, but he was here really, really early. And how's the fishing been for you this morning, Morton?
Pretty slow, but I've seen some fish. Caught a few sea trouts, but nothing big.
And it's a beautiful spot here. I'm not surprised as anglers, as experienced sea trout anglers. This seems to me, as somebody who doesn't know as much as you guys, that it's the great spot to go look for sea trout, isn't it?
It is definitely. This place is quite nice, but we have a bit of low water now, so we would prefer that the water rose a bit, and maybe the trouts will come closer to shore. But it's beautiful surroundings, and far away from too many people wandering around you. So that's why I like to go here.
And it's lovely seeing from the UK that you're kitted out with Hardy rod and Hardy reel and Hardy stickers on your thing. You're a big fan of Hardy gear.
Yeah, I'm a fan of Hardy gear, but I'm also so lucky to be a part of their pro team. So I feel blessed that I get to test out their gear and fish with their gear. So, and it's nice. It's a nice setup, and it's perfectly well balanced for the type of fishing that I'm doing.
And it looks like, is that a shooting head you've got there?
Yeah, always shooting head when I fish for sea trouts on the coast. I like that I have the ability to maybe go a bit further in the distance, although the sea trout is normally also very close to shore, but it gives a little bit of flexibility in my fishing.
Nice. And how do you approach things with fly patterns, and what are you looking to fish when you're out here in the morning?
In the morning I'm looking to catch sea trout, but this time there's also been a breach in one of the sea-based farms for rainbow trouts. So, and it's fauna pollution, so we need to help clean it up because it's damaging for the local fish. But it's also very fun because these fish are around 10, 11 pounds. So today I rigged up with a small fly that can imitate their pills for feeding, something like that.
Yeah, the good old-fashioned pellet fly. And yeah, absolutely. That's a really, really good call. And I love that you mentioned, it's fishing, yeah, just a few feet out. Morton spotted, yeah, I can see him. And you can see the bow wave as it moves away, and that was probably only 6, 8, 10 feet out. So they're about here. So, and I loved, Morton, that you used the word pollution as well. It's something we're very keen on, and if you're regular listeners, you know we're trying to stir up about salmon farms as well. And you know, it's happening here with the wrong term. You know, we're trying to catch proper sea trout, but I know people feel that sometimes they're buying a sea trout and it's a rainbow trout that's been in a cage as well. So, and pollution is music to my ears. But yeah, it looks as though there's some stuff going on here. So we're going to see if we can give it a go, see what we can find. Shortly after Morton left us, I saw some movement on the water through and had a rainbow. And it was a rainbow of about £10 or so. And I can't believe that I'm actually away on a holiday, a short break away, and I get pissed off about fish farms again and seeing this happening and getting out. And Ray and I sitting talking about it now and saying, do we move? Have these fish pushed the sea trout or spooked the sea trout out? And, you know, I just can't believe it's going on. And, you know, I'm talking about it recently on podcasts and the campaign, and yet I'm seeing it firsthand here as well, that fish are getting out into the system. Just absolutely astounds me. So we just had a deli sandwich, the morning, and a cup of tea as well, a cup of coffee, sorry, which was absolutely outstanding. It's Ray saying he's never seen it so busy here, and it must be these escapee rainbows that are drawing anglers in. There's probably 10, 12 anglers. There's 3 guys with fly rods just turned up here. We've seen people putting rainbow trout in the back of their cars. So we're trying to figure out where to head. We don't know, obviously, but we don't know whether the rainbows are pissing off the sea trout a little bit or not. We can't figure that one out. So it's a little bit confusing from that point of view. So we're trying to work that story out and go from there. But yeah, we're trying somewhere else, and it's the last roll, but we're still optimistic. Ray did see a fish move in front of him that he's absolutely convinced was a sea trout, which is really cool news. You can tell the rainbows, we'd seen another pod of them, they're just sort of swimming round in big bunches of fish. That's how it looks anyway. And they're still sort of, it looks to me as though they haven't been out long because they don't really know what they're doing. The one I caught was in good nick, so I think they're freshly out, but yeah, trying to figure out what they're supposed to do and what they're doing. But it's nice to see they're being taken out as well, so encouraging from that point of view. The really cool things when your buddy knows the water, and like I say, there'd been a bunch of anglers around here looking for those rainbows, but Ray said, right, we're going to keep on walking. We kept on walking. He said, right, around here there's a bit of a reef. I cast out second cast, I had a small fish on, came off sadly, and then cast out again, had another one on, and we landed it. So, buddy, that was just great skill. You called the play and you were spot on, mate.
It's your angling skills that brought the fish to the net, Pete. But it is nice to be on the board finally after day and a half now. So that feels real good.
It was. We've worked really, really hard at it and stuck at it. And, you know, talking to people, there weren't many sea trout being caught. There was quite a big clue there. And, you know, it was the spot that Ray literally said, right, there's a spot here with a concrete jetty. I'm standing approximately 8 feet away from it, and that's where I caught the fish. So it was a great call there. Really, really thrilled with that. I guess it's what we'd call a school peel in Devon, about 3/4 pound, something like that. Do I care? Not one little hoot. It's just been fantastic to see this all play out. And yeah, like I say, when you've got somebody who knows their water, I've talked about this so many times before that I'm so lucky that I get to fish with people who know their water really, really well. And when we did the carp one as well, people like Dave know exactly where to go, how to play it, and it unfolds. And we've had to work. We've walked, so far, and we've worked really hard, but it's played out, and I'm absolutely thrilled about it. I think it tells you a lot about your friendship and the person that you fish with. When, I've been extremely lucky that I got a fish, and that was due to race skill, nothing more, nothing less. But now I've sort of snipped my flies off, and it's late afternoon, and I'm just sitting here with my fingers crossed, hoping some magic happens for Ray now as well. And, I don't think anyone would be more pleased if I see his line go tight and him locked into a sea trout. But yeah, it's not it's felt to me that it's been a real team effort more than anything else. And I say team effort, but, it's race skill and knowledge that has found us a fish in extremely difficult conditions. It really has been a difficult one, but he's managed to pull it out the bag. And I think a sea trout for him would be a perfect sign-off for this. Whether it happens or not, I hope it does. He'll probably be out the next few days, and we'll probably catch a bunch of fish. But I would love to see my buddy catch a fish. We're making the long walk back now. I sort of sat and watched Ray for a bit. I watched another fly angler come down the bank, and it's been so pleasing to see so many anglers out on the water as well. And the standard looking at the fly casting is so high. I know I'd always read and heard that Scandinavian fly anglers were of a high standard, and there was little doubt in that, I have to say. But it's been great. I've enjoyed it as always. I fished many times. It is, I was so lucky, as I've said before, that Ray knows the spot. And then it's down to, I suppose there is a little bit of luck as well. And as I've said many times in this podcast, the vast expanse of water, all you can do is put yourself in a spot that you think is the right place for a fish, and there may or there may not be a fish around. And if you're really, really lucky, you might connect with one. But Ray was saying to me that we need to come and fish this spot again at some stage. He thinks probably the pressure that's been on the water may have put the fish off a little bit or forced them out a little bit. Was that what you were sort of feeling about it, bud?
Well, I needed a good excuse for my bad guiding, Pete. So I think that excuse works as good as any.
But it looks like it, and speaking to people, it doesn't sound as though many fish have been caught, does it?
No, I haven't seen anyone with any sea trout today, besides you. So yeah, the water has been hammered today. It doesn't take anything to put these fish down. A lure, a fly that's slightly suspicious, a school of strange fish swimming by like a school of rainbows. A lot of different things can put the fish off. But I still, despite the lack of fish, I think we still had a good 2 days fishing together, and I thank you for coming along.
Well, always, and I love this sort of fishing. As I said at the very beginning, that I think Ray had always been a little bit nervous that I wouldn't feel the same way as this sort of fishing, grabbing me and taking me away from a river. But matey, as always, I'll be back.
We'll see you then.
So everyone, this has been another episode of the Fly Culture Podcast. This is, I don't do these that we want to catch a fish so that it makes the episode, but it's been a really big ask to try and do it, and that's not down to me. I just happened to be in the right place at the right time and had been told this was a hot spot, and it was one. But it's been really cool to take you on this trip with me, and I hope you've enjoyed it, and it's given you a little bit of an insight. We've always covered sea trout and Scandinavian sea trouting in the magazine and the online magazine that I had previously as well, because I think it's a really, really cool pastime and really interesting, and I like the culture of it as well. So that's been great. It's been a toughie. We found a fish, and I'm really, really pleased with that. So I'd just like to say thank you again for listening to the Fly Culture podcast. As ever, there'll be plenty more along the line. Never looking to make a penny out of these, never going to charge you for them. So I hope you still continue to enjoy them. And if you do, if you could consider subscribing, I'd greatly appreciate it. I'm told that it allows people to find us, and if we can help spread the fly fishing word, that's great. So I'll be really grateful for that. So thank you very much indeed. And also, Morton, it was lovely to meet you if you listened to this, and hopefully we'll catch up sometime down the line. Thanks for listening.
The Fly Culture podcast is brought to you in association with Fly Culture, a quarterly print magazine. For more information, please visit flyculturemag.com. You can also find Fly Culture on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter.